I kind of, the first one I really realized that what I was doing was kind of getting more accepted is I sort of just without really planning to start taking orders for boards. Like people would see me surfing my board, the boards I was building, and I'd loan them out to people, and then they'd just order one. And I looked down one day and I had like 20 orders for boards, but I was still building houses, you know? And so I just had to sit down and make the decision. I was like, whoa, this could really go somewhere. So I was about to start a big remodel on a house and pulled out and just decided to fully commit to the surfboards. We're in my little escape hatch shop up in the mountains of Santa Cruz, where I've created a little wood shop where I'm building some boards kind of on the side. So I have this little wood shop set up, some boards in the process. I got a little shaping room over to the side here. Yeah. So they're built kind of like a guitar. They have the poplar cork rails that I glue into molds, and then I create a whole internal frame out of recycled EPS, and then vacuum mold the whole thing together so it creates the deck and bottom contours. So it already has the V into the double concave in it. This one just hasn't been shaped. I haven't turned the rails yet, so that's why the rails are so square. And then all my tail templates, so it'll get like a little round pin tail, so it won't get so squared off. So it'll get this tail on it. Once I get in the shaping room, I'll template that, and this whole thing gets cut out. Gets like a nice little round pin. This is like a speed egg, like mid-length egg for all the points around here, you know. These I glass them with this epoxy. It's called Entropy Bio-Epoxy, and it's like a tree sap derived epoxy. So it's, rather than like regular epoxies they're made from petrochemicals or like oil, like everything else is. They take, in the milling industry, when they're milling planks of wood, or 2x4s or whatever they're milling, the tree runs through the saw and all the sap drips into a big vat, and they used to just throw it away, but these guys have figured out a way to refine that into the basis for the epoxy. So it's basically tree sap that's engineered into epoxy. So they get laminated with that, and that seals them and makes them super strong. A neighbor, she knew I was a woodworker, and she's like, hey, build my kid a tree house. And so I went and found all these salvage materials and sat down and drew the tree house out with the kid. I was like, hey, what's your dream tree house? And so the kid drew a picture of it, and then I kind of like did a rendering of what that would be, and then we built it, and it was so fun. And so I was like, oh, maybe I could do this. And so I put a little ad on Craigslist. I was like, treehouse designer, builder, and I was getting instantly calls. All these people, and so for a couple of years, that's what I did. I just built tree houses with kids. I'd just show up at their house and sit down with them, and I'd give them a piece of paper, and they would draw like crazy, like, you know, all the windows were like star shaped or like shape of a unicorn or something like that. It was cool. Shaping room, the dungeon. So this is where I have my lighting all set up. So I just turn the rails, tune everything in here. And in there is where I kind of mill all the wood and assemble the boards and vacuum mold everything. And then in here is where classic shaping room, although this one's a little bit smaller. I just turn the rails and tune it. I made my first board when I was 16 because I'd found this twin fin that I loved, and it was like the 90s when everything was like thrusters and nobody had twins. It was like rockered out banana thrusters. And I found this old GNS twin fin that I fell in love with, but I killed it. I just surfed it to death in like 2 months. And nobody would make me something like it, so I was like, screw it, I got a blank and just penciled an outline on it and cut it out, and just all hand tools just shaped my first board. And then glassed it myself, and it was just the lumpiest, like ugliest, funkiest board you've ever seen, but it totally worked. I surfed it for years. until I killed that one. And then that just sort of like amoeba, and I probably built like 100 conventional boards like that, where there was like a foam blank and then shaped it normally. And then I was, at the same time, I had gotten really into woodworking, and the woodworking sort of melded with the surfboard design, and I just wanted to kind of figure out a way to build a surfboard using all my woodworking skills and like blend them together. So this sort of evolved out of that, but out of a many-year process. Yeah, well, I think I was like 21 or something. I hadn't really ever built anything out of wood, but I've been teaching art for a couple years, and my wife and I moved to Oakland, and we were living in this little apartment, and I couldn't find a job to save my life. It was just really tough to find a good job then. And across the street, they just started tearing apart this old Victorian and remodeling it. So I just walked over there one day, and I was like, "You guys need any help?" And they hired me right on the spot, and I just became like the laborer kid. And so I would just like do whatever needed to be done. But it was like this creepy old cat house Victorian, where it had been like, this old lady had passed away in it, and she had like 100 cats living in there with her. So the place was gnarly. And my job was to chisel like all the crusted cat like remains out of the house. Like it was gnarly. I would have to sawzall out these beams, and there's literally 100 cats locked in this house for like 20 years. And I would cut the beam, and it was like crystallized cat urine would just waft. And we used 50 gallons of that like Nature's Miracle shit on the whole house, and tore out all the wood, and they remodeled it and probably put like $300,000 into the remodel and fix up of it. And then finally I was like open house day, where they're letting in the realtors, and it was all fancy and nice, and I walked in and it still smelled like cat piss. It was so funny.